In this video on coordinate geometry of the line, we'll be looking at midpoint problems where we have a line segment where we know one endpoint of the line segment, we know the midpoint, but we don't know the other endpoint and we want to find it. So let's look at an example. So in this example, I've got a line segment and I'm calling its endpoints A and B. I know that A is the point 1 minus 2, but I don't know the coordinates of the point B. I do know the midpoint is the point C and its coordinates are 3, 4. And I want to find out the coordinates of that point B at the end. Well, even though I don't have numbers for B, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it XY. And because the question involves midpoint, I'm going to make a note of the midpoint formula. So here's that formula. Now, when I'm using this formula, I always use the endpoints of the line segment to work out the midpoint. So I'll do just that now. So I'll write my 2 points down and I'll label them and I'll fill them into the formula. Okay, so that's fine. And normally I wouldn't be able to do very much more with this, but I actually do know what the answer is. I know the midpoint is the point 3, 4. So I can split the solution up into 2 bits. I can look at the first component and let it equal to 3, and the second component equal to 4. And I'll write those 2 things down then as 2 separate equations. And then all I have to do to find B is just solve this equation for X and this equation for Y. Pause the video here now yourself and see, can you do that? So I want to get the X by itself. The first thing that I need to do is bring that 2 up from the bottom across the equal sign. It's dividing here, so it'll multiply when it goes across. That gives me 1 plus X equals 6. And then I'll just take the 1 away and I have X equals 5. I'll do pretty much the exact same thing over here. So the 2 goes from dividing to multiplying again. I'll multiply and then I'll get the Y by itself. So this time Y will be equal to 10. And the X and the Y that I've just found are the parts of the B point. So I can make this B point now by just making a point with X and Y together, 5 and 10. And that's my solution. Okay, so here's a question for you now. I've got a line segment DE. D is minus 3, 5. The midpoint of the line segment is F, which is 1, 3. And we want to find the point E. Pause the video here now while you work this out and then play and see if you're correct. Okay, since midpoint is involved, I make a note of that formula. I'm going to write down my D point and E point, and since I haven't got any coordinates for E, I'll just call it XY for the moment, and then I'll label those points. And now I can sub them into the formula for midpoint. And of course, I know from the question what the midpoint is. It's 1, 3. And then I just split up this point into the X term, and that'll equal to the X in this, and the Y term, and that'll equal to the Y in this. So I've got 2 little equations then to solve, for X and then for Y. So in each case, I'm bringing the 2 up across and multiplying it. I'm going to get X equals 2 plus 3, so X equals 5, and Y equals 6 minus 5, so Y equals 1. And so this time my answer is the point E, which is 5, 1.